Hey all, it's Thibodeau here, coming at you with dividing by multiples of 10. Okay, so this is actually relatively straightforward. Multiples of 10, of course, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, so on. Okay. So we'll continue to follow the 4 steps of the division algorithm: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. The divide step is more difficult when dividing by 2-digit numbers. So they're going to start by 10 because 10 is a relatively straightforward one to start with. Okay. So let's see what we got here. So if I have, how many times does 30 go into 75? Okay. You kind of want it to start like, how many times does 3 go into 7, right? And it's going to be relatively straightforward that way, right? It's a little bit more complicated, but essentially 30 goes into 75. It doesn't go into 7 at all, but it goes into 70 twice, and we get 60 with a remainder of 15. So we end up with 2 with a remainder of 15, or as I prefer it, 2 and 15 over 30, which turns into 2.5 as your answer. Remember, this is an exact answer, 2.5. 2 remainder 15 is mostly nonsense, but it's a fine first step. Okay. They do a reasonable job about figuring all this out. 30 goes into 45 once. 1 times 30 is 30. 45 minus 30, you have that 15. You bring down that 4. Okay. How many times does 30 go into 154? Well, think about it as, how many times does 3 go into 15? Okay. Start there. 3 goes into 15 5 times. So 5 times 3 is 150. Okay. So think about it that way. Think about how many times does it go into 15. Ignore the 4, ignore the 0 to begin with. How many times does 3 go into 15? It goes into it 5 times. Okay, and that gives us our answer. And again, the answer I prefer is 4 over 30. Okay, because that's a real answer. The one thing about division when you're doing a decimal is the decimal just comes right up. You just completely ignore it until the very end, and then it goes up. If you have a decimal on this side, you actually have to do something very different for it. It's more complicated. So luckily, that's not going to come up for a while. So just know that there's a whole different thing. If this was 0.2 going into 4.6, it'd be a whole different problem. So we just ignore it at this point. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and I want you guys to do for your written practice. Let's go ahead and do 9 through 25 all. Oh, sorry, 9 through 25 odd. Sorry, that's better for you. Sorry, that was probably scared a little bit of you for a second. 9 through 25 odd. All right, so 30 goes into 42. Okay. Once 12 left over, that 0 comes down. 3 goes into 12 4 times, and you get 120. Okay, so 14 exact. Over here, except it's not 14 is really, it's 0.14. Okay. So 0.14 times does 30 go into $4.20. Okay. So if you were to add $4.20 and you're trying to share it equally between 30 people, everyone would get 14 cents. Not a lot. Okay. How many times does 60 go into 725? Okay. Well, 60 goes into 7 0 times, right? 60 goes into 70 1 time. Got 12. That 5 comes down. We're just going to look at this 6 and this 12. 6 goes into 12 2 times. That's 120. Okay. 5 left over. So I'm going to do 12 and 5 over 60 as my answer. You can actually turn this into 1/12, but don't worry about that. We can leave it as 5 over 60. Okay, for right now. Over here, 40 goes into $4.80. Okay, 40 goes into 48 1 time. 8 comes down, that 0 comes down, 40 goes into 80 twice. 0. That decimal comes up, and I get 0.12. Okay, so 0.12. Over here for D, 20 and 3.20. 20 goes into 30 once. A lot of 12s. 0 comes down. 2 goes into 12 6 times, and that's my answer, 16. Okay, 120. 50 goes into 61 one time. Okay, 11 comes down, that 0 comes down. 50 goes into 110 times, twice. Okay, or you can think about how many times does 5 go into 11. So that's going to be 100. 110 minus 100. So I'm going to have a remainder of 10, or as I prefer to have, 12 and 10 over 50, which turns into 12 and 1/5. But if you leave it at 10 over 50, Mr. Thibodeau's still happy. 10 goes into 34 3 times, giving you a remainder of 4. That 5 comes down. And so you're dividing by 10, and if it doesn't end with a 0, you're going to have a remainder, right? Anything that doesn't have that ends with a 0 will have a real answer. If it ends with a 5, you're going to have a remainder, okay? 10 goes into 45 4 times, okay? So 40, and I'm going to have a remainder of 5 over 10, okay? Show how to check this division answer. So all I would do is I would do 40 times 23, and I would add 5, okay? So 40 times 23 plus 5, okay? And that's in parentheses, okay? Or 4 times 23, and then you add a 0 at the end of whatever you get. So 23 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8, 9. So 920, I add that 0, so 925. There you go. 925. There you go. Quan bought 18 eggs at the supermarket for $4.60. Estimate cost per egg. Okay, so 18 goes into $4.60. This one is tough. Estimate. So it says go to 20. Never mind. 20 goes into 40 2 times. With 6, the 0 comes down. 20 goes into 60 3 times. So roughly 0.23 cents. Okay, 0.23. Okay, either 23 cents or 0.23. All right. Sorry if I went too fast. Okay. Have a good one, my dudes. Email me if you have any questions, and have a good winter break.